Carlos Ray Norris was born on March 10, 1940 in Ryan, Oklahoma, in the family of Wilman and Ray D. Norris, and his more familiar name, Chuck, did not appear immediately. Mother's maiden name was Scarberry. The boy's father was a soldier in the Army of the Second World War, a mechanic, and also worked as a bus and truck driver. According to Norris, he has Irish and Cherokee roots. The future actor was named after Carlos Berry, his father's minister. Carlos was the eldest of 3 brothers. The younger 2 were Wyland and Aaron. Once in an interview, he described his childhood as something gloomy. When the future actor was 16, his parents divorced, and over time, he was forced to move twice. Together with his mother and brothers, they first lived in Prairie Village, Kansas, and then moved to Torrance, California. He was completely unathletic, shy, and mediocre in his studies, but most of all, the young Carlos was influenced by his father. Ray worked intermittently as an auto mechanic and drank alcohol for months. Due to his father's behavior and the unstable financial situation of the family, Norris developed an exhausting isolation that lasted his entire childhood. In 1958, at the age of 18, the guy joined the United States Air Force as an air policeman and was sent to Osan Air Base, South Korea. Yeah, he did not immediately start his acting career and did not immediately become popular. Unlike many of today's young actors, Carlos saw himself in the ranks of the military, law enforcement officers. In a word, not an actor in any way. It was while serving at Osan Air Base that Norris got his famous nickname, Chuck. There, Chuck began to study Tang Soo Do, a Korean martial art based on karate. This interest would later lead Norris to receive a black belt in this martial art and found his new form, Chun Kuk Do. In December 1958, Norris married his classmate Diane K. Holchek, whom they met 2 years before at Torrance High School. If it seems to you that Chuck tasted family life quite early, then you should know that at the time of the wedding, the girl was 17. Even after returning to the United States, Chuck continued to serve as an air policeman at March Air Force Base in California. It was not until August 1962 that he left the U.S. Air Force. On October 4th of that year, Chuck and Diane had their first child, Michael R. Norris. But this was not Norris's last child, and in the next couple of years, he will have an illegitimate daughter, Dina, and his and Diane's second son, Eric Scott Norris. Meanwhile, thanks to his completed military service, Chuck Norris applied for a job as a police officer in Torrance, California. He found himself on the waiting list and, in order not to waste time, decided to open a martial arts studio. Then, Chuck started participating in martial arts competitions. He was defeated in his first 2 tournaments, losing to Joe Louis and Alan Steen. He also lost 3 fights at the International Karate Championships to Tony Tollners. But by 1967, Norris had quite improved his technique and began to gain victories, even over such rivals as Vic Moore. As a result, on June 3rd of the same year, Chuck Norris defeated 7 opponents to fight in his final battle with Skipper Mullins. He won his first karate tournament, defeating him. On June 24th, Norris was declared champion at the S. Henry Cho's All-American Karate Championship at the Madison Square Garden, taking the title from Julio LaSalle and this time defeating Joe Louis.
Fatalities over there, and they're fighting, but they live for it. They grow up as children just to be to have that recognition as a Thai champion, and because of that, many of them, suffer very serious injuries.
Once in an interview answering a question about gratitude and happiness, Norris said that money does not guarantee happiness, but the pursuit of goals and their achievement does. Having won the world title, he did not consider it his greatest achievement. According to Chuck, the biggest one was the first tournament he won, because he worked hard trying to win it. The most interesting thing for him in the tournaments between the world titles was the moment when you achieve the title and you don't know what's next, and you need a new goal. This, according to Norris, is life. Working to achieve your goals, striving for them, and improving your life. At the same time, Chuck managed to work for Northrop Corporation and expanded his martial arts studio to a whole network of karate schools. It also included a school on Hawthorne Boulevard in Chuck's native Torrance. The network has become quite popular, and over the years, quite famous clients have visited the schools. For example, Steve McQueen, Chad McQueen, Bob Barker, Priscilla Presley, Donny Osmond, and Marie Osmond were among them. Norris's approach included American Tang Soo Do and Chuck Norris system, formerly known as Chun Kuk Do. The transition to the Chuck Norris system officially was only in 1990. At the same time, American Tang Soo Do was a combination of Mu Duk Kwan style Tang Soo Do, Judo, and Karate. Norris began developing the Chuck Norris system style to make it more efficient and comprehensive. To do this, he studied other systems such as Shotokan, Goju-ryo, Shito-ryo, American Kempo, Enhin Kaikan, Kyokushin, Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Arnis Taekwondo, Kang-Soo-do, and Hapkido. Now martial arts focuses on physical fitness, self-defense, competition, possession of weapons, and wrestling. Art includes a code of honor and rules by which to live. The rules are taken from Chuck Norris's personal code. For example, here's one of them. I will forget the mistakes of the past and press on to greater achievements. I will continually work at developing love, happiness, and loyalty in my family. I will maintain an attitude of open-mindedness. If I have nothing good to say about a person, I will say nothing.
Yeah, training-wise, again, supervision and finding the right instructor who stresses the philosophy, because the philosophy is the important tool here, Dick. The kicking and punching is only the vehicle to strengthen that individual as a person, to raising their self-esteem, raising their self-worth, teaching them how to focus their lives in the proper way, in the most positive way, teaching them the philosophy of goal seeking and realizing that there's obstacles in any goal you want to pursue and having that determination to overcome those obstacles, to reach those goals. See, this is all part of the training.
In early 1968, Chuck Norris fought Luis Delgado and had his 10th defeat, which was the last in his sports career. No, he didn't quit karate, he just stopped losing. On November 24th of the same year, Chuck took revenge on Delgado for an offensive defeat and thereby won the title of karate champion among middleweight professionals, which he then held for 6 years in a row. In addition, on April 1st, Norris successfully defended his All-American Karate Championship title in a round-robin karate tournament of champions of North America Sunday. He then won the All-American Karate Championship again, doing it twice in 1 year. This was the last time Chuck Norris participated in the tournament. He went undefeated. However, the most interesting thing is that during these competitions, Norris met another legend, Bruce Lee, who at that time was known for the TV series The Green Hornet. They conducted joint training sessions, and during this time, they established good working and even friendly relations. Soon, this acquaintance will bear fruit. Meanwhile, in August 1969, Chuck Norris defended his world title at the International Karate Championship. The competition was attended by champions from almost all 50 states and half a dozen from abroad. Chuck retained the title, thanks to which he received karate's Triple Crown for the most wins in tournaments of the year and Fighter of the Year award, according to Black Belt magazine. During the 1960s and 1970s, if Norris didn't win new martial arts competitions, he taught classes with some of the biggest stars of the time. Such in his dojo were the host of Price is Right Bob Barker, to whom Chuck once broke 2 ribs in training, and the King of Cool himself, Steve McQueen. During the years that Norris coached McQueen, they became great friends. Almost immediately after Norris left the competition, he suddenly found that many of his karate studios were experiencing financial difficulties. He thought 500 schools were better than 6 when he opened new ones, but it turned out that this was not the case, and 2 years later, Chuck lost everything. It would take him 5 years to get out of all this and pay off all creditors. He didn't know what to do when suddenly McQueen lent a helping hand and offered him a chance to try himself in a movie. Chuck, who had never played on stage in his life, doubted. Thus, Chuck Norris smoothly moves from the world of martial arts to martial arts films. But first, he will make his debut in an inconspicuous role in the comedy spy film The Wrecking Crew. His new friend, Bruce Lee, also worked on it. He acted as a voiceover action choreographer. The Wrecking Crew was the last film with Sharon Tate participation, before her murder in 1969. He also appeared in the shot of Quentin Tarantino's film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it is with this, to some extent cult film, that Chuck Norris's acting career begins. Norris began attending auditions. He even contacted several of his Hollywood friends and tried to take advantage of the connections he had established over the years. At that time, Bruce Lee had already starred in 2 films in Hong Kong and became quite popular there. Then he called Chuck and invited him to fight against him in The Way of the Dragon. When Chuck got to Rome, his fighting weight was 168 pounds, and Bruce at that time weighed about 145. The producers of the film looked at the actors nearby and said to Chuck, you two don't look much different in size. You need to be bigger than Bruce. Can we make you bigger?" He didn't understand what it meant and asked again. He was asked if he could gain weight, but he wasn't sure. He was scared because he had never done it before. He asked, "Well, how much weight do you want me to put on?" And after hearing 20 pounds, he agreed to try. Norris started eating hamburgers and drinking malt, but his daily workouts burned off the weight. The actor had to literally stop training and just eat. And then Chuck gained up to about 180 pounds for this fight scene. But of course, it wasn't muscle. It was more fat than muscle. That's why the actor didn't perform any jumps. He joked that he couldn't get off the ground. Bruce Lee founded his own production company, Concord Production Inc., together with Golden Harvest founder Raymond Chow, and The Way of the Dragon became the company's first film. In addition, Lee acted as a producer, wrote the script, directed the film, and played percussion in the soundtrack. This allowed the film to collect $130 million at the box office, and in Hong Kong, The Way of the Dragon broke the previous records of Lee's pictures. The film brought the first wide popularity to Chuck Norris and literally launched his career in the world of cinema. In 1973, Chuck played a minor role as a karate instructor in the film The Student Teachers, and although his acting was shackled and faded, Steve McQueen appreciated Norris's potential and recommended him to take acting seriously and sign up for acting classes at MGM.
See, right into here. See, I missed by just about 1/4 of an inch.
After The Way of the Dragon, Chuck signed up for another villain role in a Hong Kong American film. And the following year, Lo Wei's Yellow-Faced Tiger, a kung fu-style action movie, was released on the screens. Chuck Norris played the biggest drug lord in San Francisco who owned everything, including the police. In the end, he was challenged by a young policeman who opposed corruption. The picture failed, even despite its small budget. Chuck himself was also criticized. After such a disappointing failure, Chuck left the cinema for a couple of years to lick his wounds. In 1975, Norris wrote his first book, Winning Tournament Karate. It tells about the practical study of preparation for competitions for any rank. Chuck touches on all the stages of performing quick attacks, preparation, exercises for combat equipment, and one-step sparring techniques in it. The entire preparation technique was illustrated with hundreds of step-by-step photos. The book was liked and proved useful not only to Chuck's fans, but also to ordinary karate researchers around the world. After 2 years, the talented karateka returns to the cinema with a small American film. Chuck appeared in his first major role playing a trucker in the 1977 film Breaker Breaker. Norris decided that he wanted to act in those films in which there is a story and where action will take place when it is emotionally appropriate. Interestingly, 80% of the people in the shot were Norris's black belts, that is, his students. Surprisingly, the low-budget picture turned out to be very successful with the audience, but the critics did not react so flatteringly. The New York Times called her shoddy, with wooden direction and a sophomoric cast. The actor himself was not particularly proud of this film, but in 1981 he said that he was paid $5,000 for shooting. In 1978, Chuck Norris starred in the movie Good Guys Wear Black. Chuck could already be proud of this film, and according to him, this is his first significant main role. It is interesting that the script for the film was written 7 years before, and all this time, the actor was trying to sell it. Initially, no studio wanted to be a distributor and release the film, so Norris and his producers organized the so-called Four Walls, when the team independently rents cinemas for the screening of the film and collects all the money that comes from the picture. Norris was lucky. The action movie, which cost only $1 million, became a huge hit, collecting more than $18 million at the box office. For the American audience, it is Good Guys Wear Black that is one of the most famous films of the actor. After several years of importing kung fu films and Hong Kong action films to the United States, primarily Bruce Lee films, Good Guys Wear Black introduced Chuck Norris as the first successful American martial arts star. Many years later, The Expendables 2 will even make a reference to this film.
Clean her out. I'll give her another try.
I think our troubles with this baby are just about history.
The film differed from earlier martial arts films in its distinctly American setting, characters, themes, and politics. In a word, a formula that Norris would continue to develop in his later films. In addition, the actor's brother, Aaron Norris, played in this film for the first time. Norris himself calls this picture a turning point in his life. The fact that he agreed to shoot in it meant that Chuck changed priorities. His acting career prevailed over his sports career. At that time, Norris had the opportunity to create a new kickboxing league, but working on the film did not allow him to combine two important projects. After such an impressive success, Chuck was inundated with offers, and his next two works will again collect a large box office in cinemas. Norris was predicted to have a great future, and his fees crept to the $500,000 mark for the role. In 1979, Norris starred in the movie A Force of One, where he played the role of Matt Logan, a world karate champion who helped the police in their investigation. The film was developed during the Good Guys Wear Black rental tour, and again, no studio wanted to take up its rental, but it surpassed the previous film, showing $20 million in box office receipts. The following year, the film The Octagon was released, where Chuck Norris's character must stop a group of terrorists trained in the ninja style by his half-brother. Unlike his previous films, this time the studios were interested. American cinema releasing took over the film, and the box office almost repeated the success of Good Guys Wear Black. Chuck's next project was the Steve Carver crime thriller An Eye for an Eye. Christopher Lee and Richard Roundtree were the actors' partners on the set. However, critics were not satisfied with the picture, saying that it lacks martial arts. Chuck's career stalled on the actor's most expensive film at that time. The action movie unexpectedly failed, having collected about $10 million with a budget of $5 million. The failure of the picture can be attributed to the lack of a large studio as a distributor and an unsuccessful release date. Next to Chuck's film, the horror movie An American Werewolf in London was released, which collected $60 million in cinema and quickly became a cult classic. Soon after, MGM signed him to a 3-film contract, and in the same year they released Forced Vengeance. With a similar budget, the picture collected $1 million less at the box office and almost failed. Most likely, Norris understood that something needed to be changed and was dissatisfied with the direction that the studio wanted him to choose. Therefore, the contract was terminated fairly quickly. Nevertheless, Chuck Norris had already created a notable image for himself and was quite a well-known name in the cinema. Already in 1982, a major studio, Columbia Pictures, took over the production of his new film. Chuck played in a non-standard film for himself, Michael Miller's criminal neo-noir sci-fi thriller Silent Rage. He played the role of a sheriff who has to stop a mad psychopath. According to Miller, the film was written with Chuck Norris in mind. You don't hire Chuck Norris not to do karate. It wasn't like it was an old John Wayne script that they ended up giving to Chuck. He does his thing. He believes that the idea was to try and broaden the audience in that it wasn't a karate movie. In his view, it was a Frankenstein movie. It was like Frankenstein meets Chuck. Judging by the number of audience ratings he has, this is one of the most unknown films with Norris's participation right now. But in the year of release, he received the best marks from critics for his career as an actor. The film about Chuck Norris's duel with zombies cannot be called neither a success nor a failure. The actor starred in the film Lone Wolf McQuade. He played the role of a reckless but brave Texas Ranger who defeats an arms dealer played by David Carradine. The film became a worldwide hit and received positive reviews from film critics. It is often compared to Sergio Leone's stylish spaghetti westerns. In addition, the film became a source of inspiration for the future of Norris's popular TV show Walker, Texas Ranger. Film critic Roger Ebert rated the film 3.5 stars out of 4, calling the character J.J. McQuade as worthy of a whole series of films. There is one of the two canonical moments of Norris's career in Lone Wolf McQuade, the one where he jumps out of the ground in a car. But the picture was a failure at the box office. It was the most expensive project in the actor's career, and the fees barely covered the costs. And because of lots of box office failures in a row, large independent studios began to refuse Chuck, and he would have to sign a contract with the Cannon Group Film Company, which in those years turned out pictures with tiny budgets. In the same year, Chuck published his new exercise book called Toughen Up, The Chuck Norris Fitness System. Also in 1983, Zonox released the video game Chuck Norris Super Kicks for home video game consoles of the time. It combines two game processes: move around the map and fight enemies. The player controlling Chuck Norris must release the hostage. Later, when the license to use the Norris name expired, the project was sold under the name Kung Fu Super Kicks. The following year, Norris appeared on screen in Joseph Zito's Missing in Action. playing the role of Colonel James Braddock. The film was the first in a series about the rescue of prisoners of war produced by Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus. In other words, Cannon Films, with whom Chuck signed a contract for several movies. He would later dedicate the Missing in Action series to his younger brother, Wyland, who was a private in the 101st Airborne Division and was killed in June 1970 in Vietnam while defending the firebase Ripcord. Missing in Action features the second canonical moment in the actor's career, in which Chuck rises from the water with the legendary machine gun. The film collected $23 million in American cinemas with a budget of $2 million. It became Norris's biggest success in his career. His films will never collect more money like that. Norris became Cannon Films' most notable star of the 1980s. And a year later, a prequel, Missing in Action 2: The Beginning, was released. And 3 years later, a sequel called Braddock, Missing in Action 3, shot by Chuck's younger brother, Aaron Norris, came out. The prequel to the first part, telling about the time when Colonel James Braddock was held in a North Vietnamese prison camp, has already gained less popularity. And the third film turned out to be a failure at all. During the filming of Missing in Action 2 in the mountains of St. Kitts, Caribbean, Chuck, as a prisoner of war in a small Vietnamese camp, was hung by his legs with his hands tied behind his back. According to the plot, the guards put a large mountain rat in a bag, put it on the actor's head, and let the rat play with his face, and then they had to replace it with a fake rat and show how Chuck kills it. However, the fake rat got lost. Chuck, confused and angry, realizing how important this scene was. In May 1985, the next collaboration between Norris and Orion Pictures Studio was the crime drama Code of Silence. There, Chuck Norris plays a role of a plainclothes street officer who destroys a criminal czar. In his acting career, it ranks first according to critics and viewers. The film was the actor's last big box office success, with a $7 million budget and a $21 million box office receipts.
Get your ass up. Shit.
In September, another Cannon Films premiere with Norris in the title role took place, Invasion USA, directed by Joseph Zito. Chuck was helped to write the script for the film by his brother Aaron. This film was the first in the contract for 6 films. The studio was a little lucky. Real explosions and destruction were shot during the filming of the movie. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport planned to bulldoze the entire suburban area to expand the runway. The filmmakers made a fuss and got permission to destroy existing houses. The same situation was with Avondale Mall. The filmmakers were allowed to destroy everything in the existing mall, as part of it was subject to reconstruction. The picture was a success, and Chuck soon appeared in Menahem Golan's The Delta Force, where Lee Marvin became his partner on the set. Cannon Film Studio saw Chuck Norris as the owner of Clint Eastwood's potential, and according to the director, his acting talent is getting better. He's in the right style, and he's very popular. By that time, Chuck was the most popular actor in the studio and one of the most popular action actors of that time. The film was inspired by hijacking of TWA Flight 847 on June 14, 1985, to which Chuck reacted quite sharply. He said the United States is becoming a paper tiger in the Middle East. Once in his interview, the actor said that he's been all over the world, and seeing the devastation that terrorism has done in Europe and the Middle East, he knows eventually it's going to come here. It's just a matter of time. They're doing all this devastation in Europe now, and the next stepping stone is America and Canada. Being a free country with the freedom of movement, it's an open-door policy for terrorism. It's like Gaddafi said a few weeks ago, if Reagan doesn't back off, I'm going to release my killer squads in America. And Chuck thought there was no doubt that he had them. Surprisingly, after the release of the film, almost all critics gave low scores, spat, and talked about the boredom of the film. But it still collected a box office of $17.8 million, with $9 million spent. Chuck, meanwhile, created the animated television series Chuck Norris Karate Commandos, or as it was usually called, Karate Commandos. It was an animated show that lasted 5 episodes, produced by Ruby Spears Enterprises. There, Norris voices a cartoon version of himself who leads a team of U.S. government operatives, Karate Commandos. Also in 1987, Marvel made a comic book adaptation of the series. Steve Ditko, who previously gave the world Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, was responsible for the illustrations. And from January to July, Star Comics released 4 children's comics telling how to be as cool as Chuck Norris. It's funny, but in an interview at that time, Chuck admitted that he had never participated in a real street fight. From that moment on, the actor began to periodically ridicule his established, invincible image. So in the picture Firewalker, directed by J. Lee Thompson, Chuck was playing a comedic role for the first time and had the chance to make fun of his action persona. Colleagues in the frame were Louis Gossett Jr., Will Sampson, and Melody Anderson. Norris knew that by changing his image and playing such a role, he was taking a risk, and shared his thought. In the same 1987, Chuck released the book The Secret of Inner Strength, My Story, which reveals his self-improvement philosophy. The book instantly became the New York Times bestseller. Next year, another action movie with Norris, Hero and the Terror, was released. There, he tried to move away from the image of a brutal karateka. The film was based on the novel of the same name by Michael Blodgett and included not only an action movie. For example, an impromptu comedy scene was filmed with Chuck where he lost consciousness seeing the birth of a child. According to the actor, this scene is especially liked by women. Chuck claimed that the success of the film is contingent on how reviewers, the media, and the audience take to it. Unfortunately, critics received the picture poorly, as a result of which it collected only $5 million, and on the movie rating website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a 0% rating. Meanwhile, Canon Studio was gradually losing influence and confidently marching towards bankruptcy. In the second half of the 80s, the studio began to fall apart. The budget and films became less and less, and creditors pressed more and more actively. As a result, the owners broke off the relationship, the courts and the division of the studio followed, and in the 90s it ceased to exist. In 1990, MGM acquired Canon Films Library. By that year, Chuck Norris's films had grossed over $500 million worldwide. During this time period, he was often compared to Bruce Lee and even Clint Eastwood. Sometimes Chuck was called Blonde Bruce Lee for his roles in martial arts films, while his loner persona was already compared to Eastwood's character Dirty Harry. Chuck's family life usually remained somewhere behind the scenes. It wasn't so easy to figure out whether it was calm or unstable. In one interview, the actor was asked,
"How do you think you and Diane have managed to stay together for 27 years?
I think that, well, she travels with me. You know, if you go separate ways, then, you know, something's going to happen. But she travels with me to my locations, and she's on location most of the time. So we don't separate for any extended period of time.
Who runs the restaurant when she's gone?
Well, luckily now, we've had the restaurant now for 2.5 years, so now she doesn't have to be there all the time. And when we first opened the restaurant, she was there a lot. But her brother helps her run the restaurant, so she could take off for 3 or 4 days, fly down to my location, visit, and then fly back.
Is she the one person who can keep you in line?
Yeah.
But in 1988, Norris and Holchek had a quarrel and they broke up. No one knew the real reason. It was only later revealed that Norris cheating at an early stage of the relationship caused it. When Chuck served in the Air Force, he also dated a girl named Joanna. She did not know that Norris was married and they had an illegitimate daughter. The daughter found out about her biological father only at the age of 16, but she was able to contact him only at 26 when she wrote a letter to Chuck and offered to meet. The actor immediately recognized his daughter. The following year, after 30 years of marriage, the actor divorced his wife. He will spend some time alone, enjoying his bachelor life, but in 1998, he will marry again to the former model Gina O'Kelly, who is 23 years younger than him. The woman has 2 children from a previous marriage whom he took as his own. Norris went on to make films with his brother Aaron, who directed him in Delta Force 2, The Hitman, Sidekicks in 1993, Hellbound in 1994, Top Dog in 1995, and Forest Warrior a year later. All of them somehow had either negative reviews from critics but found popularity with the public and earned money, or had mixed reviews and did not successfully prove themselves commercially. As a result, critics one after another came to the conclusion that Chuck had stayed too long in his image and no one was interested in watching his identical roles from film to film. But Norris did not yet understand what was going on with his career. In those years, no one had known any memes about Chuck Norris's invincibility and about his talents like squeeze orange juice out of a lemon and count to infinity twice. Therefore, the actor continued to bend his line and in 1993 began playing in the action crime series Walker, Texas Ranger. In it, Norris played a member of the Texas Rangers division where he and his partner fought with criminals. While filming one scene in the woods, Chuck had to grab a huge rattlesnake bare-handed. He crept up to the snake, grabbed it by the neck, lifted it in his arms, and began counting the number of rattles on its tail. And that was supposed to be the end of the scene, as they say, and cut. But the director wanted a second take. Chuck sneaks up on the snake again, grabs her by the neck, but this time, she was ready and bit his hand. Chuck asked the snake hunter if he should go to the hospital to see if there was poison at the bite site. Hunter said it wasn't a bad idea. Fortunately, the doctors did not detect the poison. The show was quite successful and had good ratings throughout all seasons. As a result, the actor starred in 8 seasons of 203 episodes of the series, which aired on CBS from 1993 to 2001. Later, the series gained even greater fame. A full-length TV movie, Walker, Texas Ranger, Trial by Fire, as well as 2 spin-off series, Sons of Thunder and Walker. Chuck had nothing to do with the latter. In addition to Walker, Texas Ranger, Randy Travis' television special Wind in the Wire aired for the first time. The actor was introduced among the guests of the program. In 1994, Chuck Norris was the special outside enforcer for the casket match between The Undertaker and Yokozuna at World Wrestling Federation's Surviving Series event. During the match, Norris even attacked with a roundhouse kick to the interfering Jeff Jarrett. 2 years later, the actor released another book, The Secret Power Within: Zen Solutions to Real Problems, and began starring with Christy Brinkley in the long-running TV infomercials promoting Total Gym home fitness equipment. At the end of 1998, Chuck appeared in Michael Priest's television action film Logan's War: Bound by Honor on CBS. The film had the 3rd result among the most-watched shows of the channel that week. In addition, at the end of the 20th century, the actor was simply showered with various awards. So from 1997 to 1998, Norris won the BMI TV Music Award for 3 years in a row. In 1999, Norris was included in the Martial Arts History Museum's Hall of Fame, received a nomination for Favorite Actor in a Drama by the TV Guide Award, and in the same year won the Inspirational Acting in Television Award at the Grace Prize Awards. In the next couple of years, he was also awarded the Golden Lifetime Achievement Award by the World Karate Union Hall of Fame, the Veteran of the Year at the American Veteran Awards, and won the Golden Boot at the Golden Boot Awards. Once in an interview, Chuck was asked what is the key to his success. He said he thinks it's important to set a goal, get a visual image of what it is you want. So by the end of the 90s, the actor not only did not become more popular, did not play in the top league and the pictures of the first echelon, but even on the contrary stagnated. Of course, his fame did not evaporate, as if nothing had happened, and he continued to delight his fans with various informational occasions, awards, and books. But it seemed that Norris's golden days had already passed, and his career was the most successful somewhere in his youth. It is worth noting that Norris is a diligent Christian and is the author of several books on Christian topics. He even expressed his support for the intelligent design movement when he reviewed Ben Stein's Expelled. At the same time, he is a Republican and an open conservative who, since the beginning of the 90s, has repeatedly spoken out on various political issues and expressed open support for one or another Republican presidential candidate. In the early 2000s, Norris starred as a secret agent in the CBS television movie The President's Man, and its sequel, The President's Man: A Line in the Sand. He got a role in the supernatural Christian film Bells of Innocence with his eldest son Mike Norris, and also appeared in one episode of the TV show Yes Dear. More and more shows and series were released with Chuck Norris no longer in the main role, but in a minor or even cameo. So in 2004, the actor appeared in the extremely successful sports comedy Dodgeball, a true underdog story, having a cameo of himself, and became a member of the ADAA tournament committee. Gradually, Chuck gives up acting and starts doing what he does best. For example, in the same year he published his autobiographical book Against All Odds: My Story. The following year, Norris founded the World Combat League, Full Contact, a team-based martial arts competition, part of the proceeds from which goes to his Kickstart Kids program. Initially, the nonprofit organization Kickstart Kids was created as the Kick Drugs Out of America Foundation, a fund providing a martial arts program that was free for students and children. The program was supposed to teach children all the valiant qualities that martial arts can offer and discourage such bad habits as drug addiction. Chuck wanted to help as many children as possible. In 2003, the foundation became Kickstart Kids, whose mission was to build character through karate, to endow young people with basic values such as discipline and respect, to reveal their potential. Chuck recently became a father again. On August 30th, 2001, Gina O'Kelly gave birth to twins, Danilee Kelly Norris, who even starred in the same movie with her father, and Dakota Allen Norris, who is happy to box with his father at his advanced age. And now, when Chuck was supposed to smoothly disappear from the radar, something happened that no one expected. In 2005, Chuck Norris facts suddenly began to appear on the internet, which attracted more and more attention and to some extent became memes. They were founded by American humorist Ian Spector. These satirical facts, essentially, are absurdly exaggerated statements about the rigidity, character, sophistication, and masculinity of Norris. They are widely spread in popular culture around the world and become an internet phenomenon. People make translations and create local versions in particular countries. Some facts claimed that Chuck used roundhouse kicks seemingly for any task, and referred to his large amount of body hair, especially praising the beard. Many of them were based on his role in the TV series Walker, Texas Ranger. Norris responded to the facts about himself on his official website, admitting that some of the statements are really humorous. He said that he tried not to take any of them seriously and hoped that such statements will interest people with real facts about him contained in his literary works. The actor understood the joke and stated that his personal favorite fact is that people wanted to add Chuck Norris to Mount Rushmore, but granite was not strong enough for his beard.
I don't know where people came across this. It is the Chuck Norris facts. It's been floating around the internet for several months now, and this is some kid who just came up with all this wild stuff about how tough you are and everything. I'm going to give people a little example of what is on there. For example, facts like Chuck Norris once challenged Lance Armstrong in a Who Has More Testicles contest. Chuck Norris won by 5.
In an interview with Time magazine, Norris called Chuck Norris facts weird but wildly popular sayings, and then quoted one: "Chuck Norris can divide by 0." From that moment on, Norris began touring with facts about Chuck Norris, appeared on major talk shows, and even visited troops in Iraq to boost morale. On the wave of new popularity, Chuck was able to return to the cinema again and appeared in the film The Cutter, playing the main role of Detective John Shepard. The film was released on DVD and received terrible reviews from critics. In the fall of 2007, Gotham Books released a book titled The Truth About Chuck Norris, 400 Facts About the World's Greatest Human. The actor was hurt by this and subsequently filed a lawsuit against the publisher as soon as possible, claiming that trademark infringement, unjust enrichment, and privacy rights. But the book became a New York Times bestseller. After a little thought the following year, Norris dropped the lawsuit. He found another way to win in this situation. In October 2009, Tyndale House published the official Chuck Norris fact book, co-authored with Chuck Norris, and officially approved by him. Since then, comedian Ian Spector has released 4 more books, namely Chuck Norris Cannot Be Stopped, 400 All-New Facts About the Man Who Knows Neither Fear Nor Mercy, Chuck Norris, Longer and Harder, The Complete Chronicle of the World's Deadliest, Sexiest, and Beardiest Man, The Last Stand of Chuck Norris, 400 All-New Facts About the Most Terrifying Man in the Universe, and Chuck Norris vs. Mr. T, 400 Facts About the Baddest Dudes in the History of Ever. Chuck's fame skyrocketed, and it was thanks to it that he got a role in The Expendables 2. Sylvester Stallone simply could not miss this opportunity and invited him to the sequel of the first part of his superstar action movie. In this movie, Stallone used the fact about Chuck Norris as a joke.
I heard another rumor that you were bitten by a king cobra.
Yeah, I was. But after 5 days of agonizing pain, the cobra died.
In addition, in 2008, Gameloft Studio released Chuck Norris Bring On the Pain, a game for mobile devices based on the cult of facts about Norris. The player controlled Chuck Norris in a side-scrolling beat-em-up. In 2017, Flare Games Studio created another such game named Non-Stop Chuck Norris. It was an isometric action RPG for mobile devices. Both games received a lot of pleasant reviews. At the same time, Norris continued to write books, and in the same 2008 released Black Belt Patriotism: How to Reawaken America. It was a political non-fiction book that reached number 14 on the New York Times bestseller list. Chuck began to be invited to various shows and promo campaigns. Since 2010, Norris has been a nationally syndicated columnist with Creators Syndicate, writing about both personal health issues and broader health issues in America. He starred in an advertisement for the communications company T-Mobile in the Czech Republic. He starred in an advertisement for the video game World of Warcraft, a series of commercials for the Polish bank BZWBK, and 2 advertisements for the French TV series Des Pieds dans le Plat. In 2015, Norris and his wife Gina founded Seaforce Bottling Co. after an aquifer was discovered at his ranch in Navasota, Texas. There, they bottle water, part of the series from which goes to support environmental funds and kickstart kids. In addition, Norris is known for his charitable donations to organizations such as Funds for Kids, Veterans Administration National Salute to Hospitalized Veterans, United Way, and Make-A-Wish Foundation in fundraising events. Chuck also supports the Indian Vijay Amritraj Foundation, whose goal is to bring hope, help, and healing to defenseless and innocent victims of diseases, tragedies, and circumstances. With his donations, he helped the foundation to support orphanages for HIV/AIDS patients in Delhi, a school for the blind in Karnataka state, and a mission to care for adults infected with HIV/AIDS, as well as mentally ill patients in Cochin. By the way, an interesting fact: Grandpa Chuck has 7 children and 13 grandchildren. In recent years, the actor has been followed by a series of appearances in advertisements for Hoegaarden Beer and United Healthcare. He also became an ambassador for Fiat, a tough face for its commercial vehicles. According to Fiat, Chuck Norris embodies the 4 pillars of their business: determination, reliability, dynamism, and competence. Then the actor appeared in 3 commercials at once for the year: the Finnish hamburger chain Hesburger, a Cerveza poker advertising, and a Toyota commercial. In 2019, Norris signed an agreement with the gun manufacturer Glock. However, the deal was met with criticism from some members of the public and his fans, who considered that it was signed at the wrong time. This happened just in the wake of an increase in the number of school shootings in the US. In early 2020, Norris starred in an advertisement for Quick Trip, his Snackle food line. There, Norris parachutes down where he shoots hot dogs from a cannon at a crowd of people. In addition to advertising, the actor also managed to get a cameo, appearing in the finale of the series Hawaii Five-0. And in 2021, Chuck Norris could be obtained as a tank commander in the multiplayer game World of Tanks during the Holiday Ops event. It may seem that he ruined his acting career by having a lot of advertising at the end, but the actor is in an advanced age. He took great benefits of the surge in popularity to earn his old age, and he knows that happiness is not about money. That's why he spends most of it on charity. Fans are ready to forgive him everything for what kind of person he really is. Chuck Norris is a great role model, a man who shows by his own example that you should never give up. You should continue to go towards your goal. You should always think positively. This is what Norris himself wanted to show when he came into the film industry. Chuck showed the whole world that perseverance and hard work always pays off. The main thing is to believe, and then you can become successful twice in absolutely any business.